Good evening and welcome to The Read Down. We are your weekly progressive political hot take from the Stonewall Democratic Club. My name is Jonathan Welch and I will be your host and moderator tonight. This is a special episode because, of course, we are following the vice presidential debate, the only vice presidential debate between Vice President Mike Pence and California Senator Kamala Harris that just aired. So tonight we are going to recap the debate, everything that happened. We are back like flies on shit or flies on Mike Pence's head. Either way, I'm excited to talk about the fly. I'm excited to talk about what happened. And I'm going to introduce our guests for tonight, starting with my illustrious co-host, Ebony Murphy-Root.
Good evening.
Hello, Ebony, and Alex Mohajer.
That fly is the only black friend that Mike Pence has.
This is probably true. I don't know if he's hanging out with Ben Carson, but that's about all they've got. I actually was convinced for a little while that the fly was dead, but we'll get into that in a minute. We have two special guests. Last week we partnered with 800 Democrat, and Rance Collins is joining us yet again. Let's welcome Rance.
Hello, everyone. It is great to be with you.
Good to see you. And of course, we are also welcoming back one of our favorite guests. She is a writer and a fantastic Politico who we loved having on the Read Down before, Tess Rafferty.
Hello, Jonathan. I'm just happy that that's over.
Yes.
I speak for all of us, but it's like, thank God I'm here and not watching this anymore.
So this debate was very different. First of all, different in tone from what we saw last week. It was only 8 days ago that Donald Trump was screaming at Joe Biden. He was riddled with COVID at the time, but we had no idea. And he was spraying that all over the stage, and getting into Joe Biden's space. Fortunately, Joe Biden seemed to be the victor from that debate experience. Tonight was a decidedly different tone. So I want to start with the idea of, what do we think about the tone and the pace of this particular debate? I'm going to start with Ebony. How did you feel this went?
The pace was a lot slower for sure. I think Senator Harris definitely got her points in. I think that the vice president spoke over her quite a bit. And for a nice Christian guy from Indiana, he was quite rude. He was rattled, clearly. She was poised. And I don't think he won anything tonight.
I think it was the Kamala Harris that we have come to know, debating a marionette with stigmatism or something going on in the eye as well. Let's talk about that too. The moderator is kind of responsible for ending that. Susan Page was the moderator. Tess, how do you feel Susan Page did in terms of kind of keeping the time and keeping the flow of the debate going?
Not great, I'll be honest. I think the thing about this debate was that it was supremely triggering for all of us women and people of color out there who are used to being just talked over by white men and having to hold on to our shit while it's they just break the rules and then get away with it. And that's just what I saw. I spent the first 5 minutes screaming, "What the ever loving fucking fuck," over and over again. And I don't know why they just let him get away with answering whatever question he wanted, taking whatever time he wanted. And Kamala Harris showed so much fucking poise. If there's ever anyone who should have access to the football, it is that woman, clearly, after that debate, because she just really and she knows that she can't go after him, right? Like another guy could or anything. She has to just sit there and remain calm and get her points in and everything. So I thought, quite honestly, anybody who ever ran a shitty open mic in LA could have frankly done a better job. I would just cut the mic and give someone the light. And that's what you got to do. Play them off, Susan. Play them off.
Yes, please. Why we didn't introduce the idea of muting the microphone this time around, I don't know. Rance, do you have any other ideas? Maybe a cane from the side of the audience that would pull Mike Pence off? Would the fly go with him?
We need to bring back the idea of fact checking during debate, because the thing that upset me the most during this evening wasn't just the length with which he was talking, but the fact that he was able to let so many lies come out of his mouth unchecked. And it's a different situation than when Trump is lying. Trump is a carnival clown. He's not a real person. Pence also is not a real person, but he's like a smooth-talking evil genius, sociopath with only one facial expression and one tone of voice, staring right in the camera, giving you his secret plan in a way that it sounds like, I don't know, of some type of meditation tape that you go to sleep to. And just because it's easier to listen to doesn't mean it isn't a lie. And I want moderators that aren't afraid to step in when something is particularly egregious and say, you know what? That's a lie. Here's the fact. You're lying, Mr. Vice President. And the only fact checker on that stage tonight was Kamala Harris's facial expressions.
Yeah. No, I actually really enjoyed how, because they were so far apart, you constantly got the facial expressions and, a lot of side eye, a lot of, just quick turning of the head. Pence, and I'm glad you brought that up, Rance, because I do believe that the whole debate was just a big barrel of lies from Pence. Alex, I want to kick it over to you. Because I think we're going to see a lot of people talking about style over substance in the next couple days. Like, do you think that the American public is buying what Pence is selling versus what Senator Harris has to offer?
Well, in matters of both style and substance, Mike Pence did not have a good night tonight. It was not a good look for Mike Pence to be constantly going over time, constantly interrupting her the same way that, Donald Trump was much worse. Obviously, that was a whole other spectacle. But it wasn't a good look. And he has clearly, and the Republican Party have clearly committed to a campaign tactic of boogeymanning the left, violence, and I don't drink, but I almost should have played a drinking game tonight about the phony bullshit that we thought that the Trump administration was going to try to bring up tonight. Is he going to say violence and looting and rioting in the street? Check. Is he going to try to tie Kamala Harris to the Green New Deal as if the Green New Deal is a bad thing? Check. Is he going to try to say that the Biden administration is not as anti-religious because they're standing against Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation? Check. And I thought that at each point, and by the way, he hardly answered. He constantly went off on tangents because he was so riled and rankled by Kamala's extremely poignant, sharp, and direct responses where she was very aggressively, but in her ever so pleasant and sort of appeasing way, calling them incompetent and telling us why. And he was rankled and he was afraid by that. So he was constantly trying to come in and answer something she had just said, even though the moderator had moved on. This was another failure by the moderator tonight, but in both style and substance, Kamala Harris had a very good night tonight. And if you care about facts, you had a good night tonight. And if you cared about style, you had a good night tonight, particularly when she would look us right in the camera. And I thought one of the best moments of the night was about the Affordable Care Act, when she said, if you got a pre-existing condition, these guys are coming for you. Very effective performance by Kamala Harris tonight.
That was the second girl of the evening. Mm-hmm. That moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there was another moment too. And when we're talking about Pence and we're talking about how, we're talking about style and substance. And yes, on the style part, he was absolutely like running over time and kept going back to previous questions. And it was really irritating. And he wouldn't listen to the moderator. And he just was flatly disrespectful, but in this calm, maniacal way that really, really drove me nuts. One of the other moments that I noted was early on when they were talking about COVID-19 and how Pence did this thing where he's gaslighting the entire country by saying, that when Harris and Biden say that there's a failure in the administration, he's gaslighting the American people by saying that it's the American people that they're claiming. And she didn't come back from that. Like, she didn't clap back. And I really wanted her to put him in his place. do you guys have any ideas on that? Like, did you notice that as well, that he like really kind of pushed that out there as though they were the evil ones?
I think she's between a rock and a hard place, right? And Ebony, I should just turn this over to Ebony to speak to this even better than I can, because she's it's like when Hillary couldn't just get in his face. Like, we applauded Joe last week for saying, shut up, man. But as a woman, you can't do that. And as a woman of color, you especially cannot do that. Like, our society is going to spin that as being angry and emotional and you can't control yourself. And I don't even want to speak to it too much, because I feel like it's something Ebony can speak to even better than I can.
Yeah. I want to hear from you, Ebony. What are your thoughts?
The tightrope is very real. And so she kept smiling, and she almost had to overdo it, because anything that she did that seemed aggressive would be immediately misconstrued. And I was, of course, doom scrolling, and I saw some Connecticut folks who were like, why is she laughing and smiling that way? Like, even her laugh and smile are offensive, right? So the tightrope is very real. She had to deftly avoid those tropes. And I was thinking about the fact that for all those people who claim, that she isn't really Black, that they certainly apply those tropes that they apply to the rest of us Black women to her. So I think she navigated that well, and she was calm and pleasant and unflappable.
It's all about convenience sometimes, isn't it? Like, if it's convenient to have this argument, then we're going to have it. So I'm like saddened but not surprised that some people said that stuff on Facebook. We do have to remember Joe Biden deflected a lot of what Donald Trump did last week by laughing and smiling. And so this was a very similar response. And I think, if we start digging into it a little bit more, you're going to see that, this was a really good debate performance on her part. I did have people that I knew who, wanted to see a little bit of something different from her, because I think they really wanted her to play fact checker, but that's kind of unfair. Am I right, Rance? Like, it's not necessarily her job to be the fact checker unless it's coming after her record.
Well, if you're sitting there and you're fact checking the entire debate, you're not getting a chance to get out your message. You're not getting a chance to get out your policies. And so it isn't fair for a candidate to have to take on the role of fact checking. As I said earlier, that should be what the moderator is doing, at least when something becomes particularly egregious. You can't be cutting in the whole time. But when, Mike Pence is up there saying, like, we did a great job because 2 million people could have died, somebody needs to step up and say something in that case. And I hate the gaslighting from Pence. I actually tried to get hashtag Pence gaslighting trending. It didn't. If anybody wants to work on that, go ahead, because gaslighting is the perfect term for what Pence was doing this entire evening. And Kamala did the best she could under the circumstances, walking that tightrope. I love the reference to what Hillary Clinton had to do, particularly in the second debate with Donald Trump 4 years ago, where he was creeping behind her the entire time. And she wrote in What Happened that she wanted to turn around and say, back up, you creep. And I'm sure that Kamala had a few back up, you creep moments in a maybe more subtle but just as real way tonight. But because she is a woman, I know that all the other, Mike Pence was like the embodiment of toxic masculinity tonight. Trump is a blustering version of what the problem with men and mansplaining is. Pence is more of your bargain basement version that you see in every single community across America. And I hope that him talking over the moderator, him talking over Kamala, him lying in such a way that I think everyday Americans can look around and see, like, oh yeah, 210,000 people are dead. He's not telling me the truth right now. I really hope that people were able to see that objectively as what it is, and that is the embodiment of toxic masculinity.
And he definitely had his own agenda in that way, right? So we kept seeing him go back to previous questions. I think there's a benefit to that, and I'm going to ask Alex about this. Like, did you notice that because, of course, he's not answering the questions that are being placed in front of him, her reaction. Are we looking at this? Her reactions are going to be turned into so many GIFs, and I'm downloading all of them. Yes, absolutely.
Hi, Evan. Okay.
But seriously though, like there are only like 3 or 4 Kamala GIFs that are available for use on Instagram stories, and I think that after tonight there will be about 26. So, but getting back to what I was saying, with Pence not really taking the opportunity to answer questions, that really left everything wide open, right? Like, we didn't get to see really what Pence and Trump have to say about some of these things, because we know they don't really have that much to say. But what do you think, Alex?
I think when you lie through your teeth and misrepresent intentionally and knowingly, as this administration is wont to do, it's easy to have the appearance of a good night. So I think that's why fact checking is very important. But I will tell you that if he was intent on repeating the same talking points, so is she. Kamala Harris made sure to repeat over and over again tonight that 210,000 American people are dead, that people are unemployed, that people are suffering, and that this country is worse off under this administration than they were before. And she made it a point to also drive home those points, and she did it very effectively. The Trump administration doesn't have a lot of ground to stand on with regards to their success when you've got those numbers. So he can turn around and try to say that the Trump administration has been so great with coronavirus, but when she turns around right back and says, really, 210,000 dead Americans, and she said it over and over and over again. I thought if his intention was to do that, she did that just as well. And I think it's much more telling that he didn't want to answer the questions and instead went on the attack a lot. He was attacking her as a senator, trying to paint her as being the most liberal member of the United States Senate. And if anything, what I think that, I would have loved for her to say, this is a bunch of bullshit out of this guy. Do you see what this guy's trying to do? But I agree with what Tess is saying, and I agree with what Ebony's saying. My partner was watching with me, and he was like so excited, but every time she shook her head, I was like, oh my God, I have my 2016 trauma too. I'm not a woman, but I consider myself a feminist, and I was very acutely paying attention to the way that Hillary was treated in 2016, and I am very, very acutely aware that people have implicit bias, which is a phrase that Kamala Harris used tonight, which was so refreshing to hear, that people might have some sort of negative reaction to seeing a Black woman be so strong and to be shaking her head at him and rolling her eyes at him. And I don't think she ever rolled her eyes, but I just was very nervous about her going there, not because I didn't want her to, I wanted her to, but I was more afraid of what that might mean for people who are like, oh, she's too strong, in the way that we did in 2016. But maybe we've come a long way since then. I don't know. But, the question was about driving the same points home, and I thought that she did that very effectively in response. She kept them on his toes.
To your point, Alex, no, we haven't come a long way since anything, as evidenced by the fact that he's acting like, he's acting like Pence, is acting tonight, right? October 2020, like Kavanaugh was persecuted like Christ, if you believe in that sort of thing, right? Like, oh my God, the way they persecuted Kavanaugh, and she was part of the people who led that charge. And we all know how she was criticized and called names for what she did. And Kavanaugh's a sexual predator. He's a sexual predator who now sits on our Supreme Court. So it's like, no, you can't even go after if you are a woman of color, you can't even go after a sexual fucking predator in this country without getting labeled as being, angry or nasty or whatever it is. So we've come nowhere. I think is the point. We're going backwards.
Yeah, and I think they use Amy Coney Barrett as a token. Okay, Rance. Yeah. So Kat is saying Pence tried to call it slander when Kamala repeated Trump's own quotes on service members. Really mad that no one called that out. Yeah.
That's my best friend, everybody. That's my best friend.
They're not even talking about Merrick Garland. I don't know why in 2 debates now no one said the words Merrick Garland, but
Well, also, I don't understand why we're not talking about the structure of the judiciary, because Trump mentioned something in the last debate in which he said there were like 126 seats that were open or something. I might be exaggerating that number. It was a large number of seats, and nobody's bringing up the fact that it's because of Republicans changing the rules. That was one thing that Pence tried to pin on Kamala Harris, that they're trying to change the rules when they, in fact, have been the ones changing the rules. Rance, did you have a point?
Yes, this is going back to us talking about Pence being a gaslighter. What I noticed him doing repeatedly throughout the night, including whenever he tried to talk about packing the court, and what Kamala attempted to respond, and I wish that the moderator had given her a little bit more time, Pence would accuse Kamala and Joe Biden of doing what the Trump administration was doing, which is a classic abuser behavior. I really think Mike Pence is a sociopath, just to make this clear, because he is able to lie so coolly, and let's not mince words here. He is abusing the American people by telling them that someone else is doing what he is doing. I just want to make that clear.
Well, and constantly, we're seeing that they're talking about pre-existing conditions and how they're going to, cover pre-existing conditions. They have no plan, and yet they're putting it out there. And he even said that Obamacare was a disaster. Obamacare was not a disaster at all. Did you catch that one, Ebony? I want to hear from you about. I don't know. I'm getting exhausted, okay? Because it is currently 10, almost 11 o'clock on the East Coast. And I don't know how the people who live out here do it. Watch the debate and then go on with their lives.
Rance is right that the GOP is gaslighting America, and they continue to do so. If you'll notice, Vice President Pence did not answer the Roe question. And then he tried to turn it around on Senator Harris, saying that she didn't answer a question when it's exactly what he did. He totally went to this huge workaround the Roe question because he doesn't want to respond to the fact that well over half of America are fully in support of Roe. They are not in support of taking away women's liberty to choose abortion if that's what they choose. So, taking away Obamacare, taking away Roe, what will we be left with? We will really be in dire straits. And Mike Pence was scary tonight, and not at all what I think America's moving towards.
Definitely not. And one of the last questions, or it was the last question really, before the submitted question was asked, where they talked about how Trump is constantly saying that he's not going to accept the results of the election and what the reaction is to that. And Mike Pence also kind of alluded to this idea that mail-in voting is somehow fraudulent. And it's almost as though, this is exactly what they're going to do, right? Do you guys think that they're putting this message out there, they're just going to sue, basically, and say that mail-in voting is fraudulent? And what do we do with that? I know, Alex, you're a lawyer. Help.
I think the most troubling what is the most troubling rhetoric that's come out of this administration in the last months has been their intention to not accept the outcome of the 2020 presidential election, because by all accounts they're not going to win the 2020 presidential election. And Vice President Mike Pence, who we have all at least in theory assumed is more reasonable than Donald Trump, is basically saying that he does not intend to move away from being in lockstep with this president and that very troubling rhetoric. Let's be very clear. The peaceful transfer of power is the very cornerstone of democracy, of American democracy. And without it, we are not a democracy. We're Iran. We're Iran. And that is the most troubling thing. I hope that the Biden campaign is lawyered up. And I want people to be very clear that the reason they want to add Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court is they're looking for backup. They're looking for backup, as Antonin Scalia, or sorry, not Antonin Scalia, but as the conservative justices on the court have now said on the very first day of their new session, they intend to overturn Obergefell, which is what gave made marriage equality the law of the land. And they're waiting for backup from their new conservative Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And the American Affordable Care Act is coming up before the Supreme Court right after the election. And they're looking for backup from their new conservative Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And they're looking for backup on overturning decades of progress that we've made. And they're also going to look to challenge the outcome of the election in the courts. And they're hoping that the courts that Kamala Harris made an excellent point tonight of pointing out have been packed by people unqualified.
Oh, that was, to me, that was the most amazing silent moment of this entire thing, was her face. When you could, everybody's been there, right? When it was like, am I going to go here? I think I might. Are you sure you want to? No, I think I'm going to. Like, she had this whole conversation play out on her face. And then she just like hit him with that thing and finished up with, and none of them have been black. And it was like, it was amazing. It was an amazing moment. And seeing her like have that conversation with herself beforehand was just phenomenal.
Let's talk about packing the courts. Let's talk about it. And with that, I do want to play a video for everybody, which I think is one of Kamala Harris's stronger moments of the night. And this is her response to this Supreme Court case that's going to come up, that's going to overturn the Affordable Care Act.
If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer, they're coming for you. If you love someone who has a pre-existing condition, they're coming for you. If you are under the age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you.
It drives me insane that he says it's not true. Of course it's true. What are you in court right now doing? Like, you are tearing this down and you have nothing to replace it with. Like, of course it's fucking true, Mike.
I think what really just worries me about all of this, and the thing that truly keeps me up at night, is that all of these things have just become a Rorschach blot, like, for who you are and what you want to believe. And we all believe in our side, and we can see how superior she is to him, right? But we all know that doesn't mean anything in this country anymore, with not quite half the population, and that unfortunately, because the Electoral College, not quite half the population counts as more than half the population right now. So that's what scares me, is that he just has to say a couple not truths and people will be like, she's lying. The people who want to believe that.
Well, I think that's where I find it very hard to judge tonight objectively. Obviously, we all have logic, and we can see there was one person telling the truth and one person not the whole night. But I know that for whatever reason, our unfortunately male-dominated, white-liking supremacist society. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody's a racist. I'm not saying everyone's a white supremacist. I'm not saying everyone's a male chauvinist. But we do have a society that is behind the times on issues of racism and sexism. And because of that, we judge them. We judge women and we judge people of color at a different standard than I would be judged, or Alex would be judged in any situation. And what I worry about with Mike Pence is that people are going to go like, oh, he reminds me of my pastor, or he reminds me of my grandfather, or whatever. And they're going to take what he says and believe it to be true. Because don't be mistaken here, Mike Pence's job in the Trump administration is to take these stupid, ridiculous things that Trump says and make them sound somehow digestible. And that's what he did with the ridiculous stuff on mail-in voting tonight. That's what he does with the ridiculous stances on the Breonna Taylor case, which he just shoved under a carpet as if that didn't happen. It's what he does with the 200,000 lives of people who have died of COVID-19. His job is to somehow make those things sound not so ridiculous as when they come out of Trump's mouth. And unfortunately, there are there are a lot of people in our country who respond to that kind of.
And by the way, I'm happy to call them all racist. I will happily call them all racist, sexist, homophobes, everyone on the right now who's still for this ticket. And to be honest, some people on the left aren't helping us much in those areas either right now. So I'm happy to do that for you.
The truth is, Tess, if you don't consider yourself a racist, you don't consider yourself a misogynist, or you don't consider yourself a homophobe, you don't consider yourself transphobic, but you're about to vote for a man who is indefinitely all of those things, you don't have the goddamn right to say that you are not those things. What is the difference? Put your money where your mouth is. Put tribalism aside and don't support a person who represents all those things. I have dear friends. I have dear family friends, and I don't want to use their names. I grew up with these people. They're like my second parents, and they vote Republican. They're traditional Republicans in Irvine, California, and I love them. They're like my second parents. They voted for Trump in 2016, and that deeply bothered me, and our relationship has had a rift in it. And despite all that, I gave them some benefit of the doubt. I thought, you know what? They didn't want a Democrat. They didn't want Hillary. They thought she's corrupt. Maybe the bogus, crooked Hillary shit worked. Maybe Comey's letter worked. But in 2020, if you're a reasonable-minded person and you are still voting for this abomination, who Kamala Harris made a very fantastic point of saying has consistently dog whistled to white supremacists, then you are no better. If you support a person who would have this Supreme Court overturn my right to get married, fuck you, and you are no better. And it's time to draw a line in the sand, people. You might not think that you are a racist, but it's time to take a good hard look if who you want to lead the United States of America refuses to condemn white supremacy, and in fact encourages white supremacist terror groups to stand by. If you stand by a president who Kamala Harris made a great point tonight of saying knew that Russians were putting bounties on American soldiers and did nothing, who calls them losers and suckers, you do not get to say you're a patriotic American and pro-military. You don't.
Yeah, and Kamala did a great job of always bringing it back to that, and always kind of reiterating that this is how it is. I mean, are we having these conversations with people in our lives? I'm asking everyone in the panel.
I think so. I think Pence has been sullied by Trump. His little choir boy shtick is not working anymore. I think even for people who view themselves as conservative and evangelical, or they think that they are the defenders of good people, he appears smarmy, right? Even those people have friends who have benefited from gay marriage. Even those people have children who have had abortions, and I don't think that Pence is going to be able to convince that chunk of evangelicals who thought they were pulling the lever for the right side again. I just don't see it happening. I don't think they have the numbers. And I think he really proved himself to be, he was so smarmy. He was so smarmy this evening.
It was so gross. It was like reliving the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings all over again to some extent. It was just, he clearly thinks women are beneath him. Like the smarmy, smug look, he would just shake his head at her the whole time. And the way he just interrupted and told Susan what to do, the moderator, and told, and was like, it was so, we've all known that guy, right? Like we've all talked to him multiple times. We've worked with him. We're related to him. Like whatever it is, it was so terrible and triggering. For the sane people in the world, right?
Oh yeah, and
in his defense, he doesn't get out of the closet very often.
There was a lot of talk about that partition between them, and the only wall that Mike Pence is used to is one with a hole in it. So
pretty much, just ask Mother. But while we're talking about that, one of the things that did come up that I was actually really happy to see was the question of faith, and this idea that the right keeps putting this idea onto the left that we are faithless people. And Kamala Harris, flat out pointed the finger right at him and said, Joe and I are both people of faith. It is flat out insulting that you would suggest that we are not. By the way, Joe Biden would be only the second Catholic president in our country's history, because our country also has a history of being prejudiced against faith-based groups, including Catholics. So, big kudos to her. I want to have everybody kind of give us your final thoughts. But before we do, I want to talk about The Fly.
And I do have breaking news about that tonight.
Yes, I know you do. So, first of all, I thought The Fly was dead.
Yeah.
I thought The Fly had died on top of Mike Pence's head. But apparently it flew away. Alex, what do you have to tell us about The Fly?
Well, first, I'd like Kate to play the video of The Fly so that people know exactly the star of the evening was this fly on Mike Pence's head.
You got up and walked out of the room. And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor.
It's a bug. Mike Pence is wearing a bug.
Now, the breaking news tonight is that Joe Biden just moments ago tweeted, and the DNC and the Biden campaign have purchased the URL to flywillvote.com. Everybody, visit if you don't yet have a plan to vote, visit flywillvote.com.
Are we doing a bit, or is that for real?
That's for real. That's for real. Joe Biden.
There is joy on the left. Take that, Matt.
Yeah,
right? It's real.
Flywillvote.com.
Rance is a better fact checker than the moderator tonight. So look how fast. See that, Susan? See how fast he could check that and double check. So flywillvote.com, which I think is a brilliant little play on the biggest moment of the night, that damn fly.
The fly was a drone trying to feed Pence information. And Anne-Marie is the mom of our tiniest fan, little Liam, I hope he's in bed, but maybe he'll watch us tomorrow, so we've got to shout her out.
Maybe, and I'm sorry, Liam, that I swear so much. But the kids got to grow up someday. So we talked about voting. Everybody having a voting plan, and one of the things that's a differentiator between this vice presidential debate and the VP debates 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago that we've been watching all these years, is that so many Americans have already voted. We're seeing record numbers everywhere. So I just want to do a quick roundtable. I voted yesterday. Have you guys voted yet?
My ballot came yesterday or the day before, and I'm still trying to weigh in California here. Not that we have to be so concerned, but I'm still trying to weigh where the best places to deliver it. I want it counted by election day. I don't want to, that whole thing. So I have not done that. No.
Yes.
I got my ballot yesterday. I filled it out last night. Walked to my polling drop box, which they gave me 6 options of places that were within 2 miles of where I live to drop my mail-in ballot off to. And I walked to the ballot box. I gave a good to the other person I saw. I wore my But Her Emails mask. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I just want to point out, this is what voter suppression looks like. I have 6 places in LA in a 2-mile radius that I can take my ballot to. Texas has 1 per county. In Texas, keep in mind, don't even think just about the cities where you're going to have huge lines of people waiting to put their ballot into a drop box and driving across town to do it. Think also about those counties in West Texas that are literally 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have to drive to wherever the capital is in that particular county just to get their ballot in a mailbox. So this is so egregious, and I just want to bring attention real briefly to the fact that there is voter suppression in play right now.
The voter suppression.
Oh yeah, and in Texas.
Yeah, and frankly, I don't think the Democrats talk about it enough. I think it occasionally gets brought up. Senator Harris has brought it up. Senator Klobuchar has actually talked about it and introduced legislation like Senator Harris. But I think it's been negligent on the part of the Democrats in Congress to have not discussed this more vigorously in the last 4 years, because it's killing us.
It really is. And, one of the things when we talk about Texas and how they only, like Harris County, of course, being the size of Rhode Island, and they only have the one Dropbox location that you were mentioning, Rance, one of the things Alex and I discovered when we launched our National Vote at Home initiative is just how incredibly restrictive the idea of even voting by mail is to Texans. Like, you have to be either 65 years or older, be disabled, be serving active duty in the military and not being here present in the United States, or be in jail but otherwise eligible to vote. That's it. So, we are talking about not many people. So the good news is that, not everybody is voting by mail in Texas, but the counties and the cities have been able to increase early voting locations. And so there's some counteraction there. But unfortunately, it's baked in at this point. So
Ann Richards is spinning backwards and in high heels in her grave right now.
She is. And if there's a ghost that we should be afraid of, I think it would be Ann Richards. Yes. Ebony, have you...
Maybe we should be talking about the ghost of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And we haven't really talked about this, but can we just point out... Can I just point out that
everyone get in.
Is the ghost of Ruth Bader Ginsburg alive and well? I don't know.
Yeah. Or maybe a combination of both. The woman who believed in science.
For people that don't know, this is the Rose Garden last Saturday, and all the Republicans that got infected with coronavirus, while the Republican Party intends to rail through Amy Coney Barrett against the final wishes of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So RBG, she told you it was her fervent wish that she not be replaced until after the election. You didn't listen.
Look, I'll write that horror movie. I'll go out and pitch that horror movie if that's like what it takes.
Also, this is a week ago.
Yes.
That's it, right? Like, we still don't know. And, we didn't. So real quick, Ebony, have you voted yet?
I have not voted yet. I think I'm going to head down to the Long Beach Civic Center. I have the day off, I found out, and I just like to make a party of it. So that's what I'm going to do. First in line. Show up there. Maybe I'll see Mayor Robert Garcia. I hope he's watching. I hope he tunes in one of these days.
Oh, I hope so. We love Robert Garcia. Perfect. So voting in person. And Alex?
I'm going to vote in person because I'm a traditionalist. So I'm going to strap my mask on. I like to go. I like to get my sticker, and I'm going to vote early. And spoiler alert, I'm going to vote blue. And if you're curious about who you should vote for and you live in the LA County area or maybe all over California or across the United States and are interested, the Stonewall Democratic Club has a fantastic roster that was created by our very own Mackenzie Hussman of all of our endorsed candidates and measures, ballot measures and propositions. So check us out, stonewalldems.org. It's right there on the front page. And it's an exhaustive and really well done list of people that you should support if you're not sure who you want to back in the coming election.
Mm-hmm. You totally stole my thunder because I was going to. No, that's okay, because the information got out there anyway. Because yesterday when I voted, I used our Stonewall endorsement list, and I went down there, and of course we were part of that process, over the past few months of vetting candidates and vetting ballot questions and seeing where we would lie on either side, and it's quite an exhaustive list. So do check that out, and also take a look at other organizations that you trust in your local area if you're not in Los Angeles and you are looking for who to vote for and what to vote for. Before we get into final thoughts on the debate, I do want to touch on the Trump COVID situation, because of course, as we know, President Trump has COVID. He a Perone. I also heard somebody call him Covita Perone Spurs, and I really appreciated that. So Trump, of course, has been released from the hospital. It seems like it was 5 days with COVID, and he feels like he's brand new, but he's, in the words of Duncan Sheik, barely breathing, and can't find the air.
Throwback.
I love that song. I know, love that song. But a lot of things are floating out there. Is it made up? We're seeing him actually gasp for breath. I kind of think it's an emperor's new clothes kind of thing, where he has this VIP syndrome and people are just letting him chart his own course. What do you guys think about the president and the diagnosis?
I have questions for Dr. Conley. So he's a Navy person, but then also a doctor. And yeah, I think he's totally being told to do by the super spreader in chief. Nobody has COVID for the weekend. Nobody goes in on Thursday and is out by Sunday. What is this? And what are these cocktails that he's getting? And he's got new makeup, clearly. And I'm hyped up on something. This is wild. I've never seen anything like it. He is unhinged and still spreading COVID all over the White House. He's still infected. It's still active. And now he's getting it into the rugs and whatnot.
I think I'm a little bit concerned about Joe Biden in January, like moving into that house. Like they're going to have to live in the Blair house for like a month because they're just going to have to put a tent around the White House. I think at this point.
They're going to need like a coven of witches from Salem to just come smudge the fuck out of that place is what they're going to have to like grow sage around the perimeter and light it on fire every night, I think.
I'm going to be in Salem this weekend. It's my mom's hometown, Salem, Massachusetts.
Beautiful town, by the way.
It's a beautiful town. You got your haircut there.
Yeah, I had strep throat.
It is a witch.
I've told the story before on this show.
Rance, what did you say?
I think the Republicans think Hillary Clinton is a witch, so she can just go in and clear that out.
Sure, just bring some sage, and just smudge every corner of that house.
Yeah. Lots of bleach. Which Trump may have or may not have injected in his own rectum as a treatment.
We should credit. Credit Kirsten Gillibrand with that bleach because that was her best debate moment during the primaries.
Sure.
Yes.
I think the thing about the diagnosis, right? Like so much of this is just, it's like really diagnosed. It's like speculation theater that's been going on since late Thursday night. And I've turned off a lot of the news and the media because I'm like, we're going to know when we know things and not before, and maybe not even then. Right. So it's like, there's just so much like, is it this, is it that? And it's like this whole, everything we're going through for the next month, probably the next 3 months, it's so day by day. Like, we don't know what the end of the day is going to look like. We don't know what lunchtime is going to look like. We don't know what news is going to break, what's going to be true, what's not going to be true, let alone how to plan for tomorrow or the weekend or next week. So it just becomes like, I don't know. I think that, he's got it. It's probably worse knowing this White House and more importantly, knowing the science of the disease. It's probably a lot worse than they're letting on. But, everything else is really just speculation, and we'll find out more tomorrow or tomorrow night or the day after, because they can't hide this forever if it really is worse than they're letting on.
Yeah, well, look, me and Rance have reported on this in depth. I've had him onto a different broadcast, and we've talked about this. Look, this steroid that he is on, doxamethazine, I can't say it. It's
such a
severe steroid that is used only in late stage cases of coronavirus. The president of the United States has coronavirus induced pneumonia. That there's no other medical diagnosis that makes sense. So he's very sick and he's doped up on steroids because he wants to be able to go up there and stand as his sociopathic lying self is wont to do at all times, and to lie to you about how strong he is, and also what a dangerous message he's sending out, that look, you don't need to worry about the coronavirus. Don't let it take over your lives. It's easy for you to say you just received at least $100,000 worth of free taxpayer funded healthcare, you sick piece of shit. Just going up and not wearing a mask literally sick piece of shit, but also sick piece of shit, because going up there, walking right back into that White House and taking that mask off was so disturbing. And this is a global pandemic that has taken so many lives. So it was a natural conclusion. It was a natural outcome of what this administration has done and failed to do, that now the GOP would be gripped by coronavirus. And it makes sense. It makes sense that this would happen.
And of course, go ahead.
No, sorry. I want to say to anyone out there who, like, anytime you want to like get on Twitter or click on MSNBC or CNN to find out if it's real, is it a hoax, what's he doing? Phone bank instead. That's my advice. Like, we'll know the important information, we know it, but right now you can be better used phone banking or writing postcards or text banking. The Human Rights Campaign, I've got a friend in Wisconsin who's recruiting people every day to come help them just mobilize Wisconsin supporters of LGBTQ issues and things and get people to the polls. So that's my little platform there.
And funny you should say that, Tess, but if you're interested in helping flip the United States Senate and helping elect Joe Biden, and you're interested in doing it for RBG and to honor RBG's legacy and what she stood for, and to take back this country from this very corrupt administration, visit rbg.vote, which is our new For RBG campaign, which will plug you into 5 Senate races where you can phone bank and text bank and donate to help flip those Senate seats, and phone bank and text bank with the Stonewall Democrats and the West Side Democratic headquarters. These operations are live. They're happening now. They're happening through Election Day, and you can do it for us, for RBG, and for the cause. Visit us, rbg.vote.
Awesome. Yeah.
We are.
Do I get to give a shout out now?
Sure. Give a shout out. Go ahead.
All right. And if you're really confused and you want to donate to Senate races, in particular, you're not sure where you want to put your money. Do you want to do Jamie Harrison over in South Carolina? Do you want to vote to take down Tillis in North Carolina? Like, no matter where you want to go, we at 800 Democrat are splitting our fundraising this week towards Senate races all across the nation. And so you can donate to us and get your money spread out evenly across all of the competitive races. So go to 800democrat.com and hit donate.
Love this. I think the answer to everything, when we're feeling overwhelmed, when we're feeling like we're being lied to, and we are certainly being lied to constantly, and that's really my final thought, and I'll save it, but the anecdote is to create action, take action, get people involved. We watched the vice presidential debate tonight. I think we all collectively feel really good about Kamala Harris. I just want final thoughts, and I'm going to start with Ebony. What are your final thoughts for the night?
My final thoughts: in between phone banking and donating and wearing your t-shirts and accosting people at the grocery store to make sure that they are doing the same. All right, you know what cures toxic masculinity? Reading, educating yourself. So I got the memoir by the Kavanaugh friend, Mark Judge, who said that Kavanaugh was wasted in high school, and he was. Read it. It's a good story. And get women to vote. All right. We need more women in office. We need more women of color in office. We need more LGBTQ people in office. So educate yourselves, educate your friends, cure toxic masculinity. Watch All In with Stacey Abrams, which tells you all about voter suppression and how it's systemic and institutional. And stay woke. We can fix this, but you've got to know, you've got to be knowledgeable about how it all works.
Yes, you do. And speaking of getting more women in politics, when are you running?
That tightrope. I don't know. I've got to work.
As long as I'm your campaign manager, Ebony, or I'm never talking to you again.
I'll write all your press releases. We got a campaign going. Go.
Yeah, this is already happening. Now we just need to find an office to plug you into. Well, thank you for those thoughts, Ebony. I want to go over to Tess and give us your final thoughts and possibly a read if you have one.
I just want to, I guess if it's a read to anybody, I just want to come out against that can't we all agree to disagree bullshit that's prevalent right now with mostly people who want to feel okay about voting for Trump and don't want you to judge them for it. I'm going to judge you for it, like, quite honestly. And also, how dare you take the exact same words that Rodney King said, right? And you made fun of him and called him a crackhead when he said, why can't we all get along? And now you're saying it? Like, literally, hellfire is raining down on this country. We can't go outside because of the fires. We can't stay inside because there's coronavirus. And you want to know why we can't all get along? Because half this country is trying to take the rights away from the other half of this country. And that's the bottom line. And it's really like, it's like these people are just acting like you're supposed to be in jail, right? They're going to put you in jail for having an abortion or being gay or something. And they're just going to sit outside the jail cell and craft with you or something. Like, that's their vision of the future. Like, that's what their version of, like, you know, can't we all get along? I'm going to take your rights away, but you still have to be nice to me. And it's really, now I'm just spinning, but I just want to say that it's abusive. It is absolutely abusive. Like what you were talking about earlier, Alex, having somebody who you love expect you to love them when what they're doing is supporting things that harm you, that could kill you, that could get you thrown in jail, that could get you separated from your children, that could, you know, get you deported and sent back to a country you've never lived in. Like, it's abusive for them to say, but you have to love me anyway. And I think we have to ask ourselves, why would I love that person? Why would I love a person who's trying to harm me? So, like, look, this isn't standard business as usual. I want a bridge, you want a middle school. I guess we're just gonna have to disagree about this. This is like, no, I want to live. I want to live freely, and you're okay if I don't. So no, we can't all just get along. We can't all just shut up about it. If you like really are saying that, you're on the wrong side of history.
I really thank you. I really love what you said there. Like, I want to live freely, and you are not affected essentially if I don't, and that's what you're saying. And I think that that's something that we need to say so much more often, and I appreciate and applaud that. Rance, did you have any other final thoughts?
I want to go back to something that you said a little bit earlier when you brought up the way that Kamala spoke directly to the audience about faith. I was born and raised as a Baptist in Central Texas, which is basically like a southern town with a bunch of hicks, you know. And when I came out to Los Angeles, I still wanted faith to be a part of my life. And I found a very open and accepting Methodist church where Kamala Harris actually spoke in 2016. And it allowed me to have that spiritual side of myself combined with self-acceptance and not hating the sin, but loving the sinner, but loving the person and loving who they were. I am saying all of this so that when these evangelical people who line up behind Pence because he says he's pro-life, who line up behind Trump because Pence is there and they think that, well, he's a man of faith, so I can vote for Trump in good conscience. The Republican Party doesn't have a corner on spirituality and it doesn't have a corner on faith. It is a party that co-ops faith in order to get your vote. It's a party that uses abortion as a campaign issue, uses gay rights as a campaign issue so that it can make you think you're voting morally. And it exploits and it marginalizes people in the process. You are committing an act of hate this year if you vote for Trump and Pence. That is the exact opposite of what Christianity and any other religion teaches you to do, because ultimately the tenets of what Jesus taught, of what Muhammad teaches, it's love. And this year, love is on the ballot and hate is on the other side. So don't let Pence gaslight you into thinking that faith comes down to the Republican Party, because I'm here to tell you, faith is about voting for a person who believes in love.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. And listen, if thou shalt not lie is such an important tenet to Christians, I think Mike Pence kind of burned that entire idea down tonight and, you know, ran rampant with that. So it's important to keep that in mind. Alex,
Hi, everybody. So we got a comment earlier, and I want to pull it up onto the screen. It was from this lovely individual. Trump wins MAGA 2020 on Periscope. And I just have something I'd like to say to this person.
Yeah.
And who does Donald Trump owe $421 million to? That is the very, very important question that is getting lost. And Kamala Harris brought it up. But let me ask you again, everyone watching and everyone you know, ask the question, who does Donald Trump personally owe? He personally guaranteed this debt. He owes it himself $421 million to, because I have a suspicion that I know. And what does that mean for the president of the United States to owe a foreign hostile power hundreds of millions of dollars? What does that mean for you? And what does that mean for me? What does that mean? I think it's very important that we vote this guy out and ask the question. And yet, Putin, not this time. Not this time. For Hillary.
We will. I will die on the Hillary Clinton hill anytime. Listen, all day, every day. I will also say that Trump wins MAGA 2020 also commented that Trump will go 49-1. Hawaii is a beach. It does not matter.
Like, clearly you don't know what you're talking about, Russian dude.
No, do you know
you don't even understand American football? That doesn't even make sense.
This
Go
is
back.
We've hit it big.
It's so obvious now when they're Russian trolls. Like they blurt out nonsensical gibberish that they think sounds American. You guys, if you're on social media, please understand the Russians are actively interfering with our election in more pervasive and more sinister ways than they did the last time. Please be very conscious of what you consume on social media, because this idiot is a Russian bot. And it's not conspiracy theory. It's obvious now. Keep your eyes open and be conscious of that.
And have the conversations offline. You know, my final thought has to do with the idea that in the past 4 years, I've come to a realization that my life has been very difficult because it's been very hard to proceed with any notion of joy over the past 4 years. And especially as we are winding down with just 26 days to go until this election, it's very, very hard to try to find other parts of our lives that can bring us any kind of happiness while we feel that everything that we know and we cherish and we care about are under assault. My rights, the rights of basically everyone who's on this program tonight in one way, shape, or form are under assault and under attack by the Trump administration. And they're passing that along to the courts, and they're trying to have a legacy that's supposed to last my entire life. I just want to remind everyone that even though I definitely promote moments of levity when we are supposed to enjoy ourselves and take time off, that the next 26 days are crucial. Every conversation you have should be a conversation about voting out the lying pieces of trash that are currently taking up space in the White House or in the Senate or in the House. I mean, they're everywhere throughout our government, and they are the minority. We need to do our work, and we need to have every conversation we can with everyone in our lives. If it's as difficult as a conversation that Tess alluded to, which is, listen, your rights are not under siege. It's late out here. My rights are under siege. And I can't continue to have you in my life anymore. You know, I have a friend whose parents have gone full Trump, and they are considering that they're not going to let their kids see their grandparents because they just don't feel safe. Consequences are a real thing. If you want to support Donald Trump, unfortunately, you're going to have to suffer some consequences in your personal life. So I recommend to everybody to have the difficult conversations, to continue to do the work. We have 26 days left to vote. If you haven't voted already, make sure everyone in your life has done that. We saw tonight that we have one person who lives in truth while the other person so cavalierly enjoys lying through his teeth and makes it seem as though whatever he's saying is reality when it's not. So we have to fight that. And I think that we can, and I think that we can win. So let's keep that fighting spirit. This may have been the last debate of the season. Do not know. We don't know if Donald Trump will be well enough to debate Joe Biden. We will see. And if that is the case, then we will be here recapping that debate next Thursday night on the Read Down. This has been a production of the Stonewall Democratic Club. If you would like to see more about what we are up to in this election cycle and beyond, you can visit us at stonewalldems.org, where you can sign up to be a member for as little as $25 a year. Check us out. Check out stonewall.vote for our National Vote at Home initiative. I want to also thank everyone who joined us tonight, including the Trump bot. Thank you so much for joining us, but also to our guests, to my co-hosts, Alex Mohajer and Ebony Murphy-Root. Thank you. And of course, to our special guests, Rance Collins and Tess Rafferty. Thank you guys for joining. And we will see you next week, debate or not. Good night.
Thank you both. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.